Right now, the B and D trains are bypassing this subway station because there is an ongoing investigation downstairs. And we have also learned that the man killed the 41-year-old man who died as a result of this shooting on the subway platform this afternoon.
On Tuesday afternoon, February 10th, 2026, an incident that would soon capture the attention of New Yorkers and law enforcement alike unfolded at a busy transit hub in the Bronx, New York City. At approximately 2:56 p.m., a routine weekday commute was shattered by an act of senseless violence on a subway platform at the 170th Street station in the Grand Concourse area of the borough, an elevated station that serves the B and D lines and is part of one of the city's oldest transit corridors. This script explores the human story behind the tragedy, the victim and suspect, how the confrontation escalated, how local authorities responded, the broader implications for subway safety, and what the incident means in the context of crime and transit in New York City. The 170th Street subway station, located at East 170th Street and Jerome Avenue, sits within the High Bridge neighborhood of the Bronx. Opened over a century ago, this station and many like it are lifelines for thousands of daily commuters, students, workers, families, and visitors who rely on the New York City subway for transportation across the vast metropolitan area. On February 10, that station was crowded with the usual rush of late-afternoon passengers. It was ordinary in most respects until a fatal confrontation took place. What should have been a typical afternoon quickly became a scene of emergency response, investigation, grief, and community concern. The man who lost his life in the shooting was identified as 41-year-old Adrian Dawodu, a resident of Manhattan. According to police and multiple reports, Dawodu was present at the 170th Street station when an argument broke out that would lead to fatal violence. Authorities described Dawodu as someone who was sometimes seen at the station and who, in the moments before the confrontation, was reportedly muttering to himself on the platform. On an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, as midday commuters headed home and others waited for trains to the Bronx, Manhattan, Queens, or Brooklyn, Dawodu became involved in what would turn out to be a deadly clash with another man. The events moved rapidly from verbal exchange to physical confrontation and then to gunfire. According to police sources and law enforcement statements, the incident began with a dispute between Dawodu and another man, later identified as 27-year-old Alberto Frias. Police Chief of Detectives Joseph Kenny provided details describing an argument that started aboard a subway train and continued onto the southbound platform at the 170th Street station. The exchange escalated into a physical confrontation, a fight involving fists, shoves, and movement down the station platform. In the midst of the confrontation, Frias allegedly produced a firearm. Witness accounts and surveillance footage described him drawing the weapon and firing at Dawodu. The shots struck Dawodu in the thigh and groin area, severing major blood vessels and causing catastrophic injury. Paramedics from the city's emergency services swiftly transported Dawodu to Lincoln Medical Center, where medical personnel attempted resuscitation and life-saving measures. Despite those efforts, his injuries were too severe, and he was pronounced dead at the hospital later that afternoon. The confrontation, which began unremarkably, devolved into the first subway-related homicide in New York City in 2026, drawing urgent attention from law enforcement and the public. In the wake of the shooting, authorities quickly identified a suspect, 27-year-old Alberto Frias. Following the shooting on February 10th, Frias fled the scene. Surveillance footage and investigative leads showed him running from the station and into an apartment building located nearby on 172nd Street and Townsend Avenue. According to police, he appeared covered in blood and frantically sought help from a girlfriend and a family member, even asking them to request transportation for him to leave the area. In a dramatic sequence recounted by investigators, Frias is said to have dropped a shell casing from his clothing inside the apartment, potentially key evidence that linked him directly to the fatal shooting at the 170th Street station. For 9 days, Frias remained at large, prompting a search by the New York City Police Department, NYPD, that included both the 44th Precinct and the Transit District 11 unit, with detectives combing through surveillance video, taking tips from the public, and trying to track his movements. Then, on Thursday, February 19th, 2026, after a 9-day search, Frias made a choice that would bring the manhunt to a close. He walked into the NYPD's 44th Precinct station house on East 169th Street in High Bridge and surrendered to police. Alberto Frias, a 27-year-old man, surrendered to police after being wanted in connection with a deadly subway shooting in the Bronx. He walked into the 44th Precinct station house in High Bridge and turned himself in to authorities following a nearly 9-day search. The case stems from a fatal shooting that took place on February 10th at the 170th Street subway station in the Grand Concourse area of the Bronx. What began as a dispute between Frias and another man escalated into violence when Frias allegedly drew a firearm and fatally shot his victim. The man who died in the confrontation was 41-year-old Adrian Dawodu, a resident of Manhattan. Dawodu was struck by multiple gunshots on the platform just after 3 p.m. that afternoon. Emergency medical responders rushed him to Lincoln Hospital, but he did not survive his injuries. Police released details suggesting the dispute between Frias and Dawodu began earlier, possibly on board a subway train, and continued once they reached the station platform. The exact cause of the argument has not been publicly detailed by law enforcement. After the shooting, Frias fled the scene. Investigators tracked him to an apartment building on 172nd Street and Townsend Avenue, where he was spotted covered in blood. According to police, he attempted to enlist help from his girlfriend and another family member in a bid to escape, even asking them to order a ride to get away. Despite those efforts, Frias ultimately turned himself into police rather than remaining on the run. Detectives questioned him at the precinct before escorting him out in handcuffs and transporting him to Bronx Criminal Court for formal proceedings. Once in custody, Frias was charged with several serious offenses related to the incident. Prosecutors charged him with second-degree murder for the fatal shooting of Adrian Dawodu. This charge reflects the allegation that Frias intentionally caused Dawodu's death without the premeditation required for first-degree murder. In addition to murder, Frias was also charged with manslaughter. Manslaughter charges typically apply when a person causes another's death without premeditation, but under circumstances that still show culpability. He also faces charges of criminal possession of a weapon, reflecting the unlawful use and possession of the firearm involved in the shooting. During his arraignment in Bronx Criminal Court, a judge ordered that Frias be held without bail. This decision is legally significant because it reflects the severity of the charges and the judge's determination that Frias could pose a potential risk to the community or is considered a flight risk if released. At the time of his surrender, Frias declined to answer questions from reporters or law enforcement about the shooting. He maintained his silence as he was processed and transferred from the precinct to the courthouse. The prosecution will now work to build its case against Frias. In upcoming court appearances, prosecutors will detail the evidence they have gathered, including any video footage, witness statements, and forensic results relating to the shooting. The legal process can be lengthy. Frias's defense may challenge aspects of the case, potentially arguing facts about his intent, self-defense, or other legal issues. But at this early stage, the charges are serious, and the judge's decision to deny bail shows the strength of the initial allegations. As the case proceeds, the community and media will continue to follow developments closely, especially given the public nature of the shooting on a subway platform and its impact on perceptions of transit safety in New York City. The NYPD has emphasized that the shooting at the 170th Street subway station in the Bronx was not a random act of violence. According to police, the incident erupted in a matter of moments, but stemmed from a specific confrontation between the suspect, Alberto Frias, and the victim, Adrian Dawodu. Investigators have noted that while the altercation was targeted, it occurred in a public location used daily by hundreds of commuters, highlighting the unpredictable dangers posed by conflicts in mass transit settings. Authorities have described the situation as a rapid escalation from words to deadly violence. What may have started as a verbal disagreement quickly turned fatal when a firearm was introduced. Police have stressed that, regardless of the argument's origins, the decision to use a weapon in a crowded public space was an extreme response with devastating consequences. The event underscores concerns about conflict escalation and gun violence in places where large numbers of people gather, such as subway stations. In statements to the press, NYPD officials shared that Dawodu may have faced emotional or mental health challenges. Police suggested that a casual comment he made during the confrontation may have inflamed tensions, but they were careful to clarify that this does not excuse the use of deadly force. Investigators emphasized that even minor disagreements can become lethal when firearms are involved, and that situational awareness and nonviolent conflict resolution are critical in preventing tragedies. The shooting has prompted renewed attention on public safety across New York City's subway system. Law enforcement officials have highlighted the challenges of policing mass transit environments, where crowded conditions and limited space can make quick intervention difficult. NYPD patrols have reportedly increased in response, particularly in stations within the Bronx, Manhattan, and other high-traffic areas. Officers are also engaging with community leaders and transit authorities to develop strategies for prevention and rapid response to violent incidents. City leadership has been quick to respond as well. Mayor Eric Adams and other officials have expressed deep condolences to the family of Adrian Dawodu, while acknowledging the broader concerns this shooting raises for residents and commuters. They emphasize the importance of investing in safety measures, community engagement, and public resources to reduce violence on mass transit and in neighborhoods historically affected by higher crime rates. The mayor and city officials have reiterated a commitment to improving public safety, not only in subways, but across all communities in the Bronx and citywide. This includes initiatives aimed at addressing the root causes of violence, such as access to mental health support, youth outreach programs, and targeted enforcement in areas with elevated crime rates. By taking a holistic approach, city leaders hope to prevent isolated incidents from escalating into tragedies with fatal outcomes. The Dawodu case also serves as a reminder of how quickly everyday interactions can escalate. Officials have urged the public to be mindful of the potential for conflict in crowded spaces and to report suspicious behavior immediately. Police continue to review surveillance footage, interview witnesses, and gather evidence in the ongoing investigation. Their goal is to hold the suspect accountable, while also learning lessons to improve preventative policing and public safety protocols. While the investigation continues, the city mourns the loss of a life cut short and grapples with the challenge of keeping public spaces safe. Community leaders, transit officials, and law enforcement alike are calling for continued vigilance, cooperation, and resources to ensure that similar incidents do not happen again. The Bronx subway shooting has sparked an important dialogue about the balance between everyday public activity and safety, highlighting the need for continued attention to conflict prevention and gun violence reduction. The shooting at the 170th Street subway station occurred amid a broader discussion in New York City about transit safety and crime trends. Transit hubs, while generally safe relative to the vast number of daily riders, occasionally see violent incidents that garner deep public concern, especially when deadly force is used. Earlier reporting in 2026 indicated that overall transit crime in New York City had experienced some increases, including a rise in robberies and major felonies. While not all of these incidents involved firearms, they contributed to ongoing public debate about policing priorities and transit security strategies. For many riders, the subway system is more than just transportation. It is part of daily life. When incidents like the February 10th shooting occur, they resonate beyond the immediate victims, prompting questions about how to keep crowded public spaces safe and what measures, from law enforcement presence to community support systems, can reduce the likelihood of violent confrontations. Behind every headline, every police press conference, and every legal charge, there are real people whose lives have been forever altered. The story of Adrian Dawodu's death is not just a case in the news. It is a tragedy that touches families, friends, neighbors, and an entire community. For those closest to Dawodu, the loss is profound and deeply personal. A life full of relationships, daily routines, and potential has been abruptly ended on a Bronx subway platform, leaving an emptiness that cannot easily be filled. Family members have described Dawodu as a man with connections, responsibilities, and hopes, someone who had a place in his community and whose absence is keenly felt. They are forced to grapple not only with grief, but with the shock that his life was cut short in a public, crowded space, an environment where danger was unexpected. This suddenness adds to the weight of the loss, creating a sense of disbelief and vulnerability that reverberates beyond the immediate family. Neighbors, commuters, and witnesses have also been impacted. People who saw the incident unfold or learned about it afterward have expressed sadness. A moment as ordinary as waiting for a train or passing through a station has been transformed into a reminder that safety is fragile, and the line between routine and peril can be astonishingly thin. These experiences often leave lingering anxiety, reshaping the way communities perceive public spaces they once considered safe. For Alberto Frias, the suspect in the shooting, the repercussions of his actions are profound in a different way. By surrendering to police, he has ended the immediate manhunt. Yet he has also entered a legal process that is likely to span months or even years. He faces charges of second-degree murder, manslaughter, and criminal possession of a weapon, each carrying severe potential penalties. If convicted, he could face decades in prison, permanently altering the trajectory of his own life. The surrender does not erase the seriousness of the incident. Legal proceedings will examine not only what occurred in that brief and fatal confrontation, but also the motivations, decisions, and circumstances that led to the use of deadly force. Prosecutors will gather evidence, call witnesses, and lay out a case in detail. Defense attorneys will challenge aspects of the case, raising questions about intent, circumstances, or possible mitigation. Through this process, the judicial system seeks to balance accountability with the pursuit of justice. Beyond the courtroom, the incident has prompted a broader community reflection. Public leaders, law enforcement, and residents are considering the human, social, and systemic factors that contribute to such tragedies. Discussions about public safety, mental health resources, conflict de-escalation, and gun violence prevention have intensified. Citizens are asking how communities can reduce risk, support one another, and ensure that public spaces remain secure and welcoming. The story of this subway shooting is a reminder that tragedy is never just a statistic. Behind the news reports are families grappling with grief, witnesses struggling with shock, and a community questioning safety. Lives are permanently changed, lessons must be learned, and accountability must be sought. While the judicial process moves forward, the human impact endures, a vivid testament to the value of life and the costs of violence. In reflecting on Adrian Dawodu's death and Frias's legal journey, it becomes clear that every incident of violence is a complex intersection of human behavior, societal factors, and the consequences of choices made in moments of conflict. These events challenge communities to confront the reality of risk, the necessity of justice, and the responsibility each individual carries in shaping safer public spaces for everyone. The fatal shooting of Adrian Dawodu at the 170th Street subway station is a deeply tragic event, one that highlights the unpredictable nature of violence and the profound effects it can have in a matter of seconds. This incident triggered a 9-day search for a suspect, ended with the surrender of Alberto Frias, and opened a complex legal and emotional chapter for all involved. It also serves as a stark reminder of the broader issues facing urban transit systems and communities, how disagreements spiral into fatal violence, how gun possession in public spaces can end lives, and how justice seeks to balance accountability with understanding. As the legal process unfolds, and as Dawodu's loved ones mourn, New York City continues wrestling with how to keep its streets and subway stations safe for all who rely on them each day.